round of Blitz. It will be
Wesley So versus Magnus Carlsen.
That's the one to watch.
That's the one to watch, and indeed, that's the one we're following.
Yes.
And in other vital pair-ups, we have MVL versus Ian Nepomniachtchi. Now, MVL, of course, had that disastrous last round against Ivanchuk.
Basically lost out of the opening.
Yeah, for two Karo players, we were very surprised.
Indeed.
But okay, can he recover and leapfrog into shared second place? And in other matches, we have Vladimir Kramnik-Levon, and of course, in a clear fourth place is Anish Giri as a wild card versus a tour participant, Vishy Anand.
And there are the players getting set. And Christian, what do you predict?
Well, for one, I see that we have one player missing. I'm not really sure who that is, but I see him.
We've got a couple of players in it.
Okay, here comes Magnus. You can with his identifiable walk.
Well, I'm curious to see what Magnus is going to essay, what type of play is going to essay, because if he plays some random stuff and manages actually to beat Wesley, that would be a huge psychological move by the world champion. So he has the potential of doing that, or he can just play a normal game, equalize, and then slowly try to outplay his opening in a long game. We'll see what type of psychological warfare he's getting ready for.
And the players have shaken hands and started the clock. Ooh, a Sicilian. No,
maybe
E4, E5.
Maybe a dragon.
An open Sicilian at that. Wesley is not backing down.
Bishop
and
D7.
it's a kind of, well, it's not a rouser yet, or the classical knight c6, but bishop d7 is a move that I believe it was Alexei Dreyev who popularized recently. It's that flexible dragon if white doesn't go for a Yugoslav attack, and a conventional Scheveningen system on the board. But with the bishop on d7,
but you waited for the move bishop e2, which is very important, because if you play knight c6 directly, I can simply just play bishop g5, and that is the main line of the classical Sicilian.
Right.
But after bishop d7, white played bishop e2, which is more of a passive approach and more the secondary approach to this whole variation. And after that, black essayed knight c6 and entered the Scheveningen.
And so we see this move g2, g4, a page of the Paul KERES book, the KERES attack, as it's called. White simply seeking space on the king side, wants to play g5 and boot the knight. With the follow-up f4, it's now clear that Wesley is planning to duck his king over to the queen side. And are we going to see opposite color castles?
I
because
hope so.
you don't want to walk into this attack that white is conjuring on the king side with h4 and g5 and so forth. Something to be said for g6 here? Is that completely
g6 or maybe even g5?
Yeah.
At the right moment.
Right.
G5 is definitely an idea to try to take control over the dark squares in the center. Very common plan.
Yeah, g5
Right.
specifically to get an outpost. Okay. It's a pawn sacrifice.
It's a pawn sack. At the moment, I don't think it works.
Okay.
Maybe queen a5 to prepare the move g5.
Maybe queen a5.
Right. If you go queen a5, then I would just go queen d2.
Queen d2.
Right. Knight b3 also something
Right.
just to push that queen backwards.
So, but is there anything concretely wrong with g6?
Nothing concretely wrong. If I were black, I would probably play a6, queen c7,
Right.
and ready my king to exit stage right to get away from this pawn storm that is so obviously manifest on the king side. So a6, queen c7, Christian, that gets your approval?
I think so. I like that. I also, again, I like queen a5. I think it's an interesting move. But I really like what Magnus did. He played the Sicilian. He knows Wesley So is hunting for that draw. And in e4, e5, you have plenty of ways of just equalizing and killing the game immediately. In this particular Sicilian, that's not very easy. Now we're having a very sharp game on our hands.
What is this move e6, e5 all about, though? If I take on e5, Is knight takes g4 what Magnus has in mind?
Yes.
Indeed he
Yes.
does, because, well, by the way, you really didn't have an alternative. And now, bishop takes g4? Queen h4 check, or do you recapture it once?
I would like to recapture with the queen, I think. So I'm going to go queen h4.
Queen h4 check. I'm going to go king d2.
D2.
And let's go over to Maurice and Leuven. Maurice, what you got for us?
Well, MVL is doing his part in trying to chase down Wesley So, as it looks like he's going to win an exchange in this position. And there's just nothing to do with this rook to go to. If he goes to a7, then that runs into knight b5, and the rook is simply trapped. And if he goes to c8, then bishop to b7. And again, the problem along this diagonal. So Wesley So looks like, MVL looks like he's got this one under control. Of course, a lot of game left to be played. It will be very important to see the result with Wesley and Magnus, because, of course, if Wesley loses, MVL wins, he catches him for second place.
Thank you, Maurice. Important update there. And knight takes g4, castles long. Knight takes e3, queen takes e3, and queen g5. And once again, we see Magnus very confidently equalizing or getting the positions that he really likes. You take on d6, there's a rook coming to h6, and the rook coming to e, and then the rook comes
e6.
Rook e6.
But rook e6, knight d5, and I'm threatening knight c7, and that might be problematic.
Ooh, so we do. It's not so clear. Rook h6. So castles. The pawn on d6. Can it be?
Now I'm threatening bishop c6, and you no longer have the move e5. Your rook on h1 is actually stuck there because you're defending the pawn on h2.
I want to play e5.
I do too. I want to play e5
I want
and
to
just
play e5. Okay, I don't
support
care
that.
about my,
Support that
I don't care
d6
about my
pawn.
H.
I think f6 should be essayed if e5
Right.
is played.
Yes, f6 looks like a
Or rook e8. Maybe rook e8.
rook e8, rook f1. You're right. He's chosen rook e8 and rook f1.
played.
Okay, so rook takes e5, rook takes f7.
A very complex endgame.
Wow. It's all about whether or not, if that d6 pawn survives for the next dozen moves or so. And I think rook e8 was actually not well timed.
No, I think f6,
would have been a
definitely
superior choice.
the better move, absolutely.
Yes, so we're about to see rook f6, rook h2.
Right. I think so.
I think
but
this
hang
is
on,
just-
but there's bishop b,
Bishop b5.
bishop b5 in the air.
You want to get rid of that blockader on the d7 square.
Yep, that's right.
And very quickly, bishop g7, by the way.
Okay, so he has to drop back to f2.
Rook g6, rook f.
Bishop
Because if you
c3,
go rook
bishop takes
g6,
c3.
bishop takes knight on c3.
Oh, the
Your
e2.
bishop on
The
e3 is
E2
hanging.
bishop is hanging.
Oh.
No.
Thank you. That clears the cobwebs.
But he's still thinking, what is... rook f2, perhaps bishop e5 could be essayed, and then bishop f4 to solidify the pawn.
Rook f7.
Wow.
Bishop
takes-
takes c3. Rook takes d7.
Okay,
With
Wesley's going
ideas
for
of
the
bishop g4 check.
Wesley is definitely going for the draw. Simplification.
King takes bishop
Bishop
g.
b5 check.
Bishop b5 check.
Bishop takes b2.
Bishop takes b2.
Rook takes, or king takes e8, and then that should be just a draw.
King takes e8, bc3, king d7.
Well, he can go
No,
bishop,
bishop
takes
takes b2
b2.
First.
Bishop takes b2 first.
Or potentially
Why
I'm
do
just
you
going
need
to
the pawn?
take, and then rook takes h2.
Okay.
Whoa.
I'm
Bishop
keeping off the
E5.
opposite colored bishops.
Bishop e5. I would not have gone for this bishop of opposite color position. That pawn on d6 is still the most potent pawn in the position.
The problem is if you play d7, that king on d8 is going to control that pawn quite handily, and the bishop on e8 is going to be stuck. So
Okay. That was why we saw bishop retreating to g6.
Magnus seems to be playing for a win, maybe.
I think he is saying that. You know.
Oh my
Rook
goodness.
takes a h2.
Two.
Now this should be easy draw for white.
Bishop f5 to keep the control over the g4 square, and Magnus quickly attacked the bishop. Bishop drops back to h3. Wesley unsure. He steadied his hand there.
Will we see a repetition with rook h2? No.
No.
Rook. Whoa, rook f4. Does white have problems? I can't imagine that white has problems, but rook d5 looks like a very good move and was in fact played. Now on bishop f6, rook f5, and Wesley will have secured his draw, which he needs to clinch second place. Again, that's our story, as Magnus has already won first with many rounds to spare.
Rook e4 is the only way of keeping the tension, but
Bishop f5.
even so, bishop f5.
No, hang on. If you play bishop f5, can I not go? Oh no, hang on.
Rook e4,
Rook
as you
yeah.
suggested, Christian, was played. But Magnus has got to be a little bit careful, doesn't he? I mean, d7 and rook c5 could make hay.
I think he's just going to exchange off. And
Okay.
there we have our draw.
And there we have our draw. Bishops of opposite color. Rook takes e5, bishop takes e5, and a handshake.
And
Magnus
Wesley has secured his second place.
Yeah, Magnus already looking away as if to say, okay, come on, let's agree to our draw. Bishop takes b2 and a draw,
and draw
agreed.
Yep. So Wesley, second
Doing
place.
what he needed to
picking up
do,
the 10
and
points.
he picks up the 10 grand chess tour points. Very
and
well done.
$25,000.
And $25,000.